Hello, welcome to the Herald's Horn, episode 36. On this episode, Emma and I talk about Final Fantasy, of course. We've got some looks at some cards, we've got some looks at commander decks. What are we thinking? How do we feel about them? We also do talk about Pro Tour Chicago, Pro Tour Aetherdrift in Chicago. You will definitely want to be watching that this weekend. We also have some MagicCon tips and tricks. What should you know before you go? Is it your first or second time? Is it your first time being in this cold of an environment? We have a couple different ideas for you. After the break, I'm joined by Jake Browne to discuss Limited. How should you think about Limited? How should you, as someone who has not played very much Limited, how can you get into Limited? How can you love it more? What should you know before you sit down at the drafting table? It's a great conversation. I'm sure you'll love it. Without any further ado, let's just jump right into this episode. Hello, it's time for the Herald's Horn, part of the One Shot Network. My name is Cal Jones, and today I am joined by the wonderful Emma. Say hello, Emma.
Hello, Emma.
Emma, it has been some time since you have been with us here on the pod. You've been very busy, but I noticed the most important changes. At long last, your Simpsons capitalism poster is up on the wall, and you have a new poster on the ground that says "Nuke the whales." What's up with that? Or has that always been there, but behind the capitalism poster?
So this one fell down the other day, and I just had not a chance to put it back up. So these are both Simpson posters. I'm a big Simpsons fan. This one says "Must Crush Capitalism." That is actually a picture of Lenin in Simpsons form, which is from a Simpsons episode. When he comes back from the dead, goes, bruh. It's really funny. And then Nuke the Whales is a episode when Lisa dates Nelson, and she goes to Nelson's house, and she goes, "Nuke the whales?" And he goes, "Yeah, you gotta nuke something." And it's just always stuck with me. It's really funny. So I collect a lot of Simpsons stuff because I'm a big Simpsons fan. So I like to adorn my living quarters with Simpsons stuff. So,
you know, that definitely makes sense. Let's run the theme song. And welcome back. It is time to jump, as always, directly into the news. But first, I wanted to thank everyone who supports us over on Patreon. You help the show a whole bunch, and I wanted to shout out specifically our first share patrons, which right now is the singular Bald Rald. Thank you all so much for your support. Bald Rald, I know, right? That's a great little username. Our first thing we have on the docket today, Pro Tour Aetherdrift is this weekend, coinciding with MagicCon Chicago. It'll be ongoing at and during MagicCon Chicago. I have kind of just got some high-level information about the event that I wanted to share with you because you, Magic the Gathering player, should be invested in the Pro Tour because it's awesome. Even if you're just a casual EDH player, like I am pretty much these days. There is something extremely cool about watching people who are really good at Magic the Gathering playing Magic the Gathering. And the best way to do that, outside of perhaps the World's Championships, which is my favorite event every year, you have the Pro Tours. Pretty much all of this information I'm sharing came directly from the Aetherdrift Viewers Guide, Aetherdrift Pro Tour Viewers Guide. I'll link it in the bio, in the description, the podcast info, if you want to go check it out yourself. We are going to have almost 350 players, close to 350 players, duking it out in $500,000 in prize money that is up for grabs. The broadcast, which they're going to be streaming on Magic's Twitch channel, it's twitch.tv/magic, real easy to remember. We'll be starting at noon for day 1 and day 2, and we'll start at 11 on day 3, that is Eastern for all of those times. Day 1 on February 21st will be Aetherdrift Draft and Standard Constructed, 3 rounds of Draft, and then 5 rounds of Constructed. If you do 4 or 4 or better, you advance to day 2. Emma, is there going to be something a little weird and funky and different about this Pro Tour Limited? Is there something a little bit different than normal this time around?
So I could be wrong here. I can't remember the timelines between release and Pro Tours. They're normally 2 weeks, give or take. So this time it's been a week. So you know, you literally have 7 days between Aetherdrift, like global release of Aetherdrift. Granted, like the cards are playable from pre-release onwards, but getting a hold of those cards can be quite hard. So like last Friday, Friday 14th was the global release of Aetherdrift. Friday 21st is the Pro Tour, which means a lot of like the pro players, your testing groups and your teams are really trying to hammer the Aetherdrift limited format in like 5 days. And also just getting the product on time as well. That takes a few days. And it's just like, it feels very, just very compact, which, don't get me wrong, is cool for coverage because it means things feel a little more raw and less solved out, and that makes it more exciting. But for like players who want to like get another Pro Tour invite, want to get that Worlds invite, want to do all this other stuff, it's very sort of, very challenging for them. Also, we have a standard portion off from round 4 onwards. Like, it's standard. Are you going to see any like really like new standard decks? Unlikely. I expect Esper and Enchantments to be like the deck to beat because it's super powerful and it just has generally quite a good field. And I don't think there's going to be that time unless they like have any innovation to play these Aetherdrift cards, like have an Aetherdrift deck, like Insidious Roots might be a thing maybe, but that doesn't feel fully fleshed out with Ketramos and like Scavenging Ooze. That's a thing that's been cropping up. But it's going to be really hard to be like, yeah, here's some cards from Aetherdrift. I'm going to try this at the Pro Tour. You're probably going to lean on something more solved, a little bit more, just like has a track record for the event. Like Gruul Aggro is probably another one that's going to see some play because the Valiant Mice are still really good. Who knew? Like even with Aetherdrift. So it's going to be great to watch. I just wish we had an extra week between just. Because I've seen like players being a bit nervous about just getting products. And it's like, I might be going into this set with like a handful of drafts. Sure, you got like Magic Online and things like that, but you really want to get like a feel for it in paper and just like get to talk to people and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see. I hope it's not too much of a detriment because a lot of people just want to qualify for the next Pro Tour, which is Final Fantasy in Vegas. And just having that 1 week can feel kind of bad. I get it.
It'll definitely be an interesting event to watch because, it feels like by a lot of the times that we go into these Pro Tours, a lot of the limited portions can feel kind of like, quote unquote, like solved already because people can play so many games online, otherwise, all that kind of stuff now. I think like I personally am like in these kind of events where you have a really short time frame, I'm like more interested in the limited format, and then kind of to your point, like less interested in the standard format than I may be otherwise, because like the short timeline aside of some of the feel bads, like people literally can't get their hands on products to try to do some drafts and that kind of stuff.
Also, just sourcing cards for their constructed decks.
Exactly. That's just tough. It's tough to do in a week's time.
It's also very hard considering it is an Aetherdrift Pro Tour. You want to highlight the Aetherdrift cards, especially for constructed. So that's really hard to do when you just have this 1 week turnover from global release to the Pro Tour.
Yep. And I think it is interesting. Like I've seen a couple people talking online about some of this stuff. It is just kind of like silly. Like the decks that were already some of the best, like Esper Bounce and Dimir Rid-Range / Tempo and Gruul or that kind of stuff, are kind of the decks that also got some of like the most obvious slottable, innable cards, like from Aetherdrift. You look at it and you go,
it's like,
you're like,
a 1 or 2 into Dimir and Esper.
I'll just put that in. Cool. Where, if Aetherdrift is going to add the right cards to the card pool for us to get a whole new archetype combined with older cards, probably not going to happen or whatever. But, like if anything, like one of the major changes we'll see is maybe Golgari mid-range will be able to break through a little bit more because Golgari has its Verge now. Ooh, their mana base is a little bit better.
You make a good point, actually. So Boros aggro might be a thing because we've got Sun Below Verge, which is the red-white land, and everyone was clamoring for this land because it's just like, this is the thing that's holding Boros back, is this Verge land, because we've seen how good Thornspire Verge is in Gruul. So it's clear that we have that data to be like, have these cool dual lands, you're probably going to do well. So we might see Boros, like aggro with the Mice and Boros Charms and Lightning Helix and Sheltered by Ghosts. That might be a thing, just because you have these Verge lands. But I would not be surprised if it's just like Esper Enchantments, because the deck's super resilient. Also, it was like a super late bloomer during like the standard period. Like that wasn't solved at a Pro Tour. That took time to develop. So these things can happen outside of Pro Tours, and it took like months for it to be a thing. So, yeah.
My hopium copium for this Pro Tour is that we get to see some people playing like Dimir mid-range, which is basically like the old Dimir tempo decks that people thought were like the best or second best decks in the format. You know, piles of Enduring Curiosity, your Mockingbirds, your Deep Cavern Bats, those decks. But already people like in the standard challenges from the last week, a bunch of people have been playing those decks again, but just with 4 Oil Deep Gearhulk in it. That's the kind of Magic I want to watch people play. I want to watch people have Enduring Curiosity and Oil Deep Gearhulk in their deck. Yeah, I'm going to put this 4/4 Lifelinker into play. It's hard to remove because it has Ward 1, and I'm going to Vendilion click you. Let's take a look at your hand. You're going to discard that. You're going to draw a card.
The Vendilion click ability is the best thing about that card.
Yep.
I'm very excited for it because it just reminds me of Vendilion click, which is this very classic modern card. Played a lot in like Azorius Control, and it's just like cool. I'm just looking forward to someone to click themselves and everyone going, "Oh my god, you can do that!"
I know, that's what I was about to say. Like every time I looked at Oil Deep Gearhulk, I was like, okay, yeah, this is some kind of like opponent hand disruption thing. Because like, you know, when you look at those kind of effects in the modern era, so often they just say like target opponent, and that's just like your brain fills that in. But no, it says target player. You can click yourself. What's not to love? So day 1 will be 3 rounds of draft and then 5 rounds of constructed. So we'll get to watch a whole lot of draft and a whole lot of limited. Like I said, everyone who is 4-4, 4 wins and 4 losses or better will advance on to day 2. Day 2 is exactly the same. Day 2 will be 3 rounds of draft and then 5 more rounds of constructed. And then rather than there being a record-based cutoff, it is just the top 8 ranked players in between their record and their specific tiebreakers will advance on to day 3. And the tiebreakers on this one will be important in some past Pro Tours. 12-4, so 12 wins and 4 losses has kind of been a lock. Because of how many players are in this event, there will probably be some 12-4 players who get into the top 8 and some 12-4 players who miss the top 8, which is kind of scary. Got better hope that your opponent match win percentage is pretty high. And then in day 3 is standard for a big event like this. It will just be the top 8 players playing in a single elimination tournament against each other using their standard decks. Best of 3. Yeah, is it best of 5 the whole day?
I know the finals best of 5. I believe it's best of 5 all day because not the whole day is the Pro Tour top 8. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and then when it's best of 5, it is the first 2 games are pre-sideboarded, and games 3 through 5 are with sideboards, which is interesting. That's always a little bit of fun. So that's Pro Tour Aetherdrift. As always, if you are not at MagicCon Chicago, or if you are at MagicCon Chicago and have some downtime, I will always recommend that you throw that Twitch stream on. It's a great team of people working this weekend. We've got Paul and Marshall doing the limited, which I will be excited for. Yep. Pretty much doing better for that.
Also, Wizards have been starting to cross stream on YouTube. So if you've got YouTube and YouTube Premium, you can. I've started because I have YouTube Premium, so I just watch it on there because I don't want ads. So if you have YouTube Premium, like Wizards, like the Magic channel is on YouTube. I believe it's just YouTube/Magic. Like
YouTube.com/Magic or Magic TCG or something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, that's like they just like hit the stream at the same time and just channel it to 2 places, which is cool.
And of note, for the viewing pleasure of you at home as well, if you think that you are just going to be sitting around watching people play Magic really slowly and the draft is going to take forever and there's going to be a lot of downtime in between rounds, well, no, at long last, they invented this thing where they start recording 3 hours before they go live. And then you slowly catch up to real time throughout the day because they speed everything up else for you a little bit. It makes the viewing experience just that much better. So, Emma, any other thoughts about the Pro Tour this weekend before we move on?
No, I'm just excited to watch it. It's always a great time. You know, it's just great background noise when you're just doing your chores or you're just doing stuff around the house. You can just have, you know, Marshall and Cheon just talking about Limit and Maria and Corey talking about Standard. It's just really good. And also you just learn a ton by just watching people play. I've learned so much just from watching Reduke play Pro Tours, just because like just the level of play is just so high.
There's so many moments of like, oh, what are they going to do here? Are they going to do this or this? And then they do a secret third thing, which was obviously the correct choice that you simply never would have thought of.
One thing I do recommend, if you're not going to MagicCon Chicago and a bunch of you into Magic, just have like a watch party, a Pro Tour watch party. They're super fun. You can just get some drinks, get some food, and just get to talk about Magic. You get to talk about draft picks for Aetherdrift. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't take that, that kind of thing, and just have a good time.
One thing I just remembered this because we both mentioned Paul and Marshall independently of each other. I was reminded of, I did just listen to the Limited Resources Aetherdrift format overview episode of Limited Resources with those two. And they were saying that, and this is something I think will be interesting to see at the Pro Tour, the last couple of sets, even like the last 2 years of sets or so, the limited formats have played out fairly similarly, especially in the early weeks where it's just like, oh, you're not sure what you're doing? Grab some white cards and grab some red cards and slam them together and play a 1-drop and a 2-drop and a 3-drop. And it doesn't matter what they say. You'll probably be fine. You'll probably win. This set is like entirely different. This is the slowest set we've seen in a year. This set is looking to be a set where Golgari and Simic are currently the two best performing color pairs when they are historically the two worst or two of the three worsts in a lot of recent sets. Boros is one of the lesser performing color pairs right now through the first week. Exactly. So I'll be very interested though to see that, like, that's what the data looks like right now, but it would be very interesting for me to see if the Pro Tour comes around and Team Ultimate Guard Channel Fireball has discovered that actually, no, you do just want to force drafting Boros and you need these cards and then you're just going to run people over.
I just would not be surprised if Seth Manfield's trios with like the nuttiest Boros deck because everyone just kept passing him.
Because everyone's like, well, cards. I guess I'll take the third best green card in this pack because green is really strong. And Seth's like, I got another Boros rare. But yes, excited for Pro Tour Aetherdrift. Interested to see how the limited portion turns out with it being such a new set. Not as excited about the standard portion since it does seem like there's such a dominant deck or two, and Aetherdrift probably won't mix it up. And even if it does, probably not in this short of a time frame. Of course, I'm sure a team will just show up with something purposely completely cracked because they spent time focusing a lot on standard rather than limited. But
I'm expecting Channel Fireball to cook because they always do.
I'm sure.
They either cook or play it safe.
I was about to say, it's like Channel Fireball and Sanctum of All. I would expect those teams to just show up with some like absolute heaters and we'll see what happens. All right. Speaking of Pro Tour Aetherdrift, it will be going on at MagicCon Chicago. I will be there. Emma will not be there. Sad.
In spirit.
Yes. And rounding out the rest of the crew, Dan will not be there, but Lexi will be. So come and see your favorite Herald's Horn hosts. We're all tied at number 1. So come and see 2 of your 4 favorite Herald's Horn hosts at MagicCon Chicago. And I, as someone who loves to go to so many of these events and has had the chance to learn a lot of things about how to do things right and do things wrong, wanted to pass on a few tips, especially if it is like your first or second MagicCon you're going to. The number one that I would emphasize this weekend is wear some layers. Chicago is never exactly warm, even in the summer. And here in the Midwest, even for me, I'm used to it being cold. It is going to be cold this weekend. It is going to be
with the wind chill, which will make it feel colder. So lots of little layers and a big coat.
Yes, definitely. Wear layers because you are going to want to be hot outside and you will be surprised at how warm it can get inside when they have the heat on and there is 2,000 people plus, way more than 2,000 people. What am I saying? In a shared space together, you will be surprised how quickly it will warm up. So you will want to wear things that will keep you warm outside and then you can easily get rid of and keep track of when you get inside, because you will be very cold outside and you will be very warm inside. Also, wear a mask. Number 1, hey, if you have a mask on, it'll be a lot easier to keep warm outside. Let me tell you, cover up your face with those things. Your breath will keep you nice and warm. We've got COVID going around right now. We've got noro going around right now. Pneumonia, both bacterial and viral, is going around right now. Ask me how I know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. So there is a lot. Flu is even going around right now. ever since I have started fairly consistently wearing masks at these events, I simply stopped even getting the most basic of con crud, you know? So even if you don't like having a sniffly nose when you go home, or if you would like to help avoid many other much worse health outcomes for yourself and others, I would heavily recommend wearing a mask. My number one, like, magic related tip, bring less cardboard than you think you need. Bring less cardboard than you want to, and then cut another deck from that standard as well.
Yeah. You will never have as much time as you think you will at these events. And like, sure, I think because you put this post out on Blue Sky, it was like, what things people should be doing at MagicCon, and it's like, just like temper your expectations a bit. Like, don't get me wrong, MagicCons are super fun. They are some of my favorite events to attend to, but you're never going to do everything that you want to do at a MagicCon simply just because there's too much stuff. That like, it's like, we've got D&D stuff this time around, so you got that extra layer. So just temper your expectations and keep things open. Don't have schedules back to back to back to back. Like, give yourself some time to like wander around, wear a really good pair of shoes, like a good pair of trainers, because you're going to be walking a ton and you don't want your feet to hurt after the weekend. Like, people get really disappointed when they don't get to meet everybody and do all this stuff. And it's like, you really need to be honest with yourself, because if you just keep setting those high expectations, you're just going to be more disappointed. And the last thing you want to be is disappointed at a MagicCon. Like, you're meant to be jazzed and excited and like look at all the cool cars and meet all the cool artists and friends and so forth. Like, it's very easy to get lost in the muddle of the noise. So.
Definitely. There are so many things to do. There are so many attractions to see, so many events you could attend, so many Magic events you could play. You could easily pass the entire weekend in the vendor hall. You could easily pass the entire event pretty much at the main stage. You could pass the entire event going through the merch line 3 times. You could
pass an event without playing a single game of Magic, which has happened to me before, just because I just got so caught up in everything else. So that's why it's really important, as Cal mentioned here, is to just like be really aggressive with what you're taking. Like, realistic, you need to be realistic about it. Don't take too much, because obviously you're carrying this in your backpack. Also hurts your back after a while if you don't have a good backpack. So just being really sort of measured about it.
Yes, exactly. Your back and shoulders will thank you. And it's just like, it's that much less stuff to look after, be responsible for, have to dig past when you're trying to pull out a Sharpie or whatever so the prof can sign your Merfolk card, And in that vein too, something that I almost always forget to do and immediately regret it, bring like an empty deck box or an empty something to bring stuff in. You will buy stickers from artists. You will end up impulse purchasing a cool card from a vendor. You will end up with tokens from your favorite creators. You will accrue cardboard and other goodies at these things. Most of them will fit into a deck box. Do not just bring 5 full deck boxes and have nowhere to put your stuff except for stuffing them in your deck boxes. Bring an empty thing that you can stuff stuff into. Your future self will thank you. And then it'll all just be centralized in one place too.
Yes. One more thing I want to say quickly is, as somebody who gets very exhausted by lots of noise, like it just like feels really draining after a while. Sometimes you just need a break. At Magic Cons, there are always quiet rooms, which are literally what they say. They are rooms that are quiet. They're free. They're like free for, MagicCon attendees. And basically it's just a room where you can just sit down. It's way out of the main hall and you can just chill out, just kind of decompress, kind of, just like relax. And then you can go back into the MagicCon hall if you want. There's a couple of those in Chicago, I believe, and they're really useful. I made use of them last year. I made use of them in Philadelphia for the MagicCon because they had them there. And it's just a cool tool to know if you're just feeling overwhelmed by the buzz, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of noises, it's a sensory overload at times. There's just too much going on. Sometimes you just need a break. And these quiet rooms, I recommend just trying to find these quiet rooms before you just enter the hall.
Yeah, good to look out for them. I have made a lot of use of them myself because, I am also a person who, I think a lot of people maybe wouldn't tag this unless you really know me, but I am someone who is very easily overwhelmed. I'm not the most extroverted person in the world. And I will disappear for an hour at a time at Magic Cons, and people are like, where did you go? I just couldn't be in this room anymore.
Yeah. Like, and like people aren't as social as they used to be just because like lockdown taught us to be a particular way. So kind of like relearning that can be quite overwhelming. So yeah, make use of the quiet rooms if you can. They're really useful. They're just like good to chill. Just have some headphones on and you're good to go.
Yep. And in the vein of taking care of yourself, much the same as, we were saying, you'd be surprised how quickly time can pass in this. A Commander game, you think it's real quick. It's secretly been 2 hours. This draft, that secretly went 3 hours. You've been hanging around chatting. Somehow the entire morning has passed. Watch the clock. Make sure you're eating food. You'll be quickly surprised like how quickly your blood sugar can just crash. And then you'll be feeling miserable, tired. No clue why. It's because you haven't eaten or you haven't drank water in 5 or 6 hours. Make a plan, stay hydrated, stay fed. And you probably making a plan, figuring out where you may want to go, figuring out places nearby, or even just like having a Cliff Bar or some kind of thing, something snacking in your bag can save you from having to, in a moment of desperation, buy a $14 slice of convention center pizza which your wallet doesn't want and you don't want and your stomach doesn't want. So have a plan on how you're going to stay hydrated and stay fed, and you will have a much better weekend as well. Under those fluorescent lights, time does not exist. So
when you're in a windowless room, you just don't have an idea of what time of day it is.
Yep. Those are my tips and tricks, Emma. Do you have anything else?
No, I think quiet rooms is like the main one, and just a really, really good pair of shoes.
Two very, very
you will do
things.
much more walking than you realize. You'll probably walk like 6-7 miles in a day, every day at these conventions. So good pair of shoes will be thankful for your knees and your back. They may not look snazzy, but you'll at least be comfy and not in pain. And that is way more important.
Definitely. So that is all we have for the news. It's a very MagicCon centered week and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about the Magic movie eventually. It wasn't last week. It wasn't this week. Maybe next week.
Maybe we'll get some actual news about it. Like we've been waiting for the last 6 years.
Emma, it's coming. That's the news. Let's go ahead and move on to the Product Watch. Welcome to the Product Watch, the part of the show where we talk about all of the Magic the Gathering products that have been announced or are upcoming or anything like that in the last couple of weeks or in the coming couple of weeks. Boy, it's a big week for that. Final Fantasy, we got our, Magic the Gathering, Final Fantasy.
Thank you.
The Magic the Gathering set is coming soon. We got kind of our first look at it from IGN on Monday, and then today at time of recording they had the normal weekly MTG stream, and as a part of that stream they showed off some more cards, some of the special treatments, all that kind of stuff. Monday, the main news that was brought to us was that there was going to be 4 commander decks featuring characters from various Final Fantasy games, kind of centered around those games as well. There's a Cloud, so like a Final Fantasy 7 deck. There is a Final Fantasy 14 deck for all the MMORPG heads out there, which I don't know how to pronounce that character's name, but the Esper Cat Lady. That is the card that I'm personally most interested in. That looks kind of
goth. It's going to sell well. Just on that
exactly.
Alone.
Esper Cat Lady with a cool design. Okay, hotcakes. All right. I do have a question though, Emma. So Final Fantasy is not the next set that is coming out. The next set that's coming out is Tarkir Dragonstorm.
Correct.
Why are we learning so much about Final Fantasy before we really have heard a single thing about Dragonstorm?
I've seen a ton of this on social media because people are like, where's the Tarkir Dragonstorm? Aetherdrift has come out. We should do everything in like chronological order of release, which, as someone, if you're just like a casual consumer of Magic, I totally get that. Like, you're like, why am I getting this information about a June set when the April set hasn't even been like discussed properly yet? What's going on there? And usually these first looks that Wizards do, whether it's at a MagicCon, you're going to see some stuff about Tarkir Dragonstorm at Chicago this coming weekend. You should watch the stream and be at the panels. I'm sure it's going to be fun. The reason Wizards do these first looks is not necessarily for you as a Magic player, but this is for like distributors and retailers, because distributors and retailers need to know how much to order, like stock. Because if Wizards do this too late, then they're not going to arrive on time, and they want to meet demand. And the last thing you want is to enter your LGS, buy like a bundle of Final Fantasy, and they just don't have any because Wizards just announced everything a bit too late, and it couldn't arrive in time. There was too much demand, that sort of thing. So these first looks are just specifically for distributors, and just for retailers, just to get an idea of how much to order. And given that Final Fantasy is going to be the biggest Magic set of the year, it's going to be bigger than Marvel, you need to get ahead of that, right? And you need to be get ahead of that. Pre-orders for Final Fantasy are now. You can pre-order it right now as well. So it just makes total sense to have your big tentpole Magic set of the year to have an early pre-order schedule, just so they can meet demand. So Universes Beyond set, there's going to be a ton of casual draw to this set. So obviously you want to order more than you normally would. So yeah, I understand why people are frustrated and what the hell's going on here. It's just literally to temper expectations for retailers and distributors, because otherwise they can't get product, people can't get product, and people are sad. And the last thing you want is to tell people no, they can't buy Final Fantasy stuff. This is also the last time. This is also the last time you're probably going to hear about the set until May, when the previews actually start. It's just getting that in early because they do it with every big summer set. It happened with Tales of Middle-earth. It happened with Modern Horizons 3. This is very normal for Wizards. It's just we don't remember because everything is just such breakneck speed, and just there's a lot of information coming. But that's the industry answer. It's I understand if you're frustrated, totally get it. But Wizards had nothing to lose to advertise this to the consumer, fans, also media as well, because it means they get to cover it as well, so it's extra attention for them. But predominantly it's for people who order product.
Yeah, and I get why people would be mildly frustrated about it or whatever, but it seems like the people who are mildly frustrated about it are the people who just don't care about the set regardless. Because everyone I see who cares about the set is having a grand old time on the timeline right now.
Looks
that is
great.
For sure.
It's, the timing is a bit weird because obviously Aetherdrift just came out last Friday, and now we're straight into Final Fantasy. But the fact that Wizards are doing this earlier just says to me, we live in a really sketchy economical climate. Let's be honest. People need to be selective about the sets they buy. They can't buy every Magic set or buy cards or buy product from every Magic set. There's 6 standard sets this year. That's quite a lot. So by doing this, it means people going, oh, I can lock in my pre-order for Final Fantasy now and not worry about it in 4 months. I already have it, sort of thing. Sure, that eats into Tarkir, Dragonstorm and Aetherdrift sales, but it's Final Fantasy, man. They're going to make so much money out of this. So
yep, exactly. It's absolutely insanity. It's absolute crazy how popular Final Fantasy is. Just another extremely popular game series that has been around for a very long time that also appeals to some different demographics than some of the other IPs that we've had as Universes Beyond stuff so far, I feel like. They showed off even more previews today, but a lot of the previews today kind of seemed like a range of showing off some of the ranges of what it's going to have in the set rather than showing a ton of stuff. I saw there was some really cool wood block treatments that they showed off, including on a card called Jumbo Cactuar, which people who have played specific Final Fantasy games will definitely recognize. It's a 7-drop 1/7. And whenever it attacks, it gets plus 9,999 plus 0 until the end of the turn, making it a 10,007. Good old 10,000 needles from our Jumbo Cactuar. Yeah.
I think the most exciting part about Final Fantasy, for me anyway, is the fact that sagas are back, but they're back on creatures. So there's creature sagas, which are the summons. So Shiva, Ifrit, Bahamut are all going to be creature sagas. So they have the saga stuff, but they can also be creatures. And that's really cool and very very deliberate for Final Fantasy. That makes a ton of sense. As someone who's played a lot of the Final Fantasies, I get where they're coming from here. It
is very interesting for them now to take the logical step of, oh, this is both a saga and a creature. So you get Summon Shivra, 5-drop, 4/5, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, you get to tap a creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. And then 3, draw a card for each tap creature your opponent controls. But since it's a saga, when you put that 3rd lore counter on it, you will have to sacrifice your creature. So you do get a 4/5 for, 2 turns effectively. It'll be interesting to see what other kind of stuff they do with that design. It is a really cool design because, we had the sagas, we had the read ahead sagas, then we had the sagas that could flip into creatures. And now we have sagas that are creatures. Of course, we also have one saga land as well.
Yes.
They really have played all the hits. Saga, it's been a great card design. I love to see them make more of them.
Agreed.
And they also showed off there's going to be some transforming cards in this set, which kind of makes sense. What do you do with characters that have some kind of extreme character change over the course of the game or something? Well, you're going to have Cecil Dark Knight that transforms into Cecil Redeemed Paladin. That's just kind of neat. Or Emmett Selch, I never know how to pronounce that, turning into Hades, So it's just cool. It's cool stuff. A lot of really sick stuff that they showed off. I am obviously, I am someone who is going to be a little bit less excited for this set than some others, but that's because my Final Fantasy fandom is a lot, it is relatively early in the series. Like I've played 1 through 3, American 1 through 3. And I have obviously played 7, and then I, have tried to get into 10, and I've tried to get into 15, and the newer ones have never really clicked for me actually. So like some of the references to the older ones, I'm gonna be like, woo, yeah. And then
I'm the Final Fantasy boomer, so it's like 1 till 6, like I'm on it. Like I played like 7, 9, and 10, like all the popular ones that are, like at the height of the PlayStation 1 era. But it was the 1 to 6 that really captured me as a kid. So I'm going to be really jazzed for those.
Yep. So it should be fun. I'm glad people are excited for it. It'll be interesting. This seems like another one of the like gimmies for like what you said. It's such a big IP. It should probably be so successful. Definitely another set that has the potential, like kind of up there with Lord of the Rings, to simply maybe surpass Lord of the Rings as the best selling set of all time.
I would not be surprised if it surpassed Lord of the Rings. I know that's like a take, but Wizards, like expectation wise, they say it's like they want it to be as good as Lord of the Rings. So, and watching the weekly MTG stream that happened today, everyone is super excited. You could tell like they're really passionate. Gavin Verhey, who's the set lead, was just like gushing about the set and just, like there's legitimate excitement, which is always great to see.
Yep. And hey, I'm sure that I will catch up to the hype.
It is a long way away. So it's like you can just kind of like sandbag that hype until like May when the previews are likely to start. And then you could be like, cool, here's Final Fantasy because we've had Tarkir Dragonstorm. That's done because that's released in April. And then we can focus on this. So I totally get that.
And speaking of Tarkir Dragonstorm, we don't have anything to say about it yet, but I did want to know because a lot of people have been like, hey, this is Final Fantasy. Where is Tarkir Dragonstorm? The answer is they're going to be showing it off at MagicCon Chicago this weekend. Hey, makes sense. Reward your invested players by giving them something interesting to look at, like
and in Magic set as well.
Yes,
and in Magic set as well, which is important.
I think that's all we've got for the product watch. So, Emma, it's time for us to move on to our next segment, the return of the co-host's notebook. But now it's about Magic the Gathering.
I haven't been on for a while, so I don't know how much has changed.
I had big plans and nothing has changed, Emma.
Okay.
I got too busy.
That's the mood.
Welcome to the co-host's notebook Magic edition. This is like the co-host notebook of old where our co-host could talk about anything that they wanted to as long as it wasn't about Magic. But hey, this time on the co-host notebook and most of the time when we break out the co-host notebook moving forward, this is kind of like a, hey, you're someone who enjoys playing Magic the Gathering, co-host in this instance, Emma. Is there anything that you've been passionate about with Magic or anything you've been thinking about that we just haven't had the chance to cover on the horn?
So I haven't played a ton lately just because I've been super busy with the work. But I have been enjoying, and I'm surprised I haven't mentioned this until now, I've been playing a lot of Canadian Highlander when I have been able to play Magic. If you aren't familiar, Canadian Highlander is a 100-card format. It's 1v1. Uses its own like point system instead of like a ban list, and you have up to 10 points, and it's up to you. You got up to 10 points, and you get to spend those points on super powerful cards. The best way I've been able to describe Canadian Highlander is that it's vintage cube constructed, but you get to play your favorite deck every time. So it's like a vintage cube draft. And every time I open my hand, it's like, I've drafted mono white again. I'm so good at this. Like, this is great. I'm just going to play mono white. It's super fun, fantastic community. Like the Canadian Highlander community is super welcoming. They're super fun. I've been watching a ton of like North 100 content while I'm working or at the gym. And it's just like another cool, quirky format that I just get to appreciate. That's also community driven. Being part of the Purple format panel also means I should tap into like these other community focused formats, because we can probably learn something from it as a PFP member. So, I'll probably talk to some of the Canadian Highlander folks soon and just like talk shop, just like, how do you do things? What can we learn from this? But in terms of gameplay, it's really fun because it just reminds me a ton of Vintage Cube. And if you can't get like 8 people to like draft a Vintage Cube, you could just 1v1 Canadian Highlander, and you can just literally just take your commander deck, switch it up, and just go. It's really, really fun. I play mono white like mid range, I think is the best way to put it. Mm-hmm.
What's your point spread?
What's my point spread? So I need to remember this. This has changed recently. So it's Azure Saga, Ancient Tomb, White Flame Adventurer, Sol Ring, and Mox Pearl.
I love a Canadian Highlander deck that plays like 5 pointed cards. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like, because they've just changed the points recently. So my points went up. My points when I first started was 10. Then it went down to 9. And now it's gone back up to 10 again. But they also reduced the points on Sol Ring. So, like, I got an extra card out of the deal as well. So, because Azure Saga and White Flame Adventurer came pointed. So I didn't actually have to change anything, which is great. Which is the important thing. I didn't have to change anything.
The points of your cards changed, but you still ended up with just 10 points.
Yeah. I had like a point to work with at the last update. So yeah, I play mono white mid range. It has like a Martyr proc theme, so it runs all the Soul Sisters and stuff like that. And I'm also building Gruul Eldrazi, which is like a stompy deck, because Minsk and Boo, Timeless Heroes, is a very messed up card in Canadian Highlander.
Extremely good Magic card.
Also now pointed, thank God. But it's a very messed up card, and it's really good with a bunch of Eldrazi, like Reality Smasher and Eldrazi Line Breaker. Stuff like that. So yeah, it's really fun. It's a cool way to just, explore 100 card formats. If you can't always get like a Fire Pod for Commander, you can just play Canadian Highlander. Dual Commander is another good one. I think it's a cool alternative. Like you learn a lot from these 1v1 formats, and I think people should explore it more. Like, I'm hyper focused on Canadian Highlander because it's just like a new discovery, and I'm just starting to play it, and it's a fun experience. I also just recommend checking out North 100, like the gameplay videos, even if you don't play Canadian Highlander, because they do a really good job of just like explaining plays, explaining points, talk about games, like what players could have done differently, that kind of thing. And it's just really easy watching, which I think is really important.
And in this exact vein, we're talking about Canadian Highlander. We're talking about pointing. Benjamin Wheeler, everyone's favorite content creator.
Always glad to be here.
Yes, he's always glad to be here. He was on episode 18 of the show way back yonder, but the interview half of the show, it's a really good conversation with Ben. He talks about some of their philosophy behind how they run it, how they think about pointing, and how he wishes he could just like single point 200 cards, but that's not really how it works. It's an interesting interview. If you're interested, you can go and listen to that in episode 18, which is half of the show ago now, because this is episode 36.
Nice.
Kind of crazy. How did I make 36 episodes of this show? I don't know. Canadian Highlander is awesome. It's a really cool format. It's the one Magic thing that has just kind of stayed at. If I had a little bit more bandwidth, I would be an active participant. But I do get to watch a lot of, in my opinion, Magic the Gathering's best show, and that is North 100. Just get to watch Surge and Wheeler make fun of each other for
so my
an hour
LGS is very commander focused, like I think most LGSs are these days, which also means they have a really good like CEDH community. And like a lot of my friends who who play CEDH are like, Emma, you should get into CEDH. And I'm like, if you want me to play a single card, like a 100 card singleton format, I will play Canadian Highlander. That is my compromise. And everyone's like, wait, that's a great idea. Let's all just build Canlander decks. And I'm like, that was easy. I was expecting some resistance.
Definitely.
Now we play Canadian Highlander like every Wednesday when I'm not busy with work. So and also we get to play some Pauper as well, because a lot of them are also into Pauper. So I'm the person that brings like 10 Pauper decks to an LGS, and we just jam. And it's just really fun because it's very chill. It's like, which is what you need after a long day, especially when I've been working on Magic all day. The last thing I want is something that's just like really intense and high thinking. Just want to like turn to jelly and play cards.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That is awesome. What else can you want? What else can you need but turning into jelly and playing Magic the Gathering cards? And
Canadian Highlander. But no, I recommend trying it. Like, even if you can't play with any of the Power 9, just like everyone has Soul Rings. Congrats, you have 3 points already. Like, you can just build a deck and just have fun.
Well, before we go, Emma, do you have anything else that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Not really. Just, I guess, be involved in your community. Like, be involved with helping people out. Get your flu shots, get your COVID shots. Wear a mask.
Well, that's all we have got for you this week. Emma, thank you for joining me. We have an excellent interview coming up. Be sure to stick around for it. Bye-bye. As a quick little note for the video watchers at home, we had a little problem recording this time around. Jake's camera, for whatever reason, just kind of got desynced and resynced, so his sound will not always match up with his words. I could have fixed it, but it probably would have taken me legitimately like 5 hours of work, and, well, I am driving to MagicCon Chicago in like 6 hours. So, hey, learning lessons for next time. Thanks for watching and listening. Hello and welcome back. On this week's episode, I am joined by the one and only Jake Browne. Say hello, Jake Browne.
Hey, Jake Browne.
What was that? You had a little prop?
It's the Hunter's Art. You sent it to me along with the instructions about how to shave my mustache, and I comply.
You shave your mustache?
I mean, did I not do it to regulation? I was trying to get it as even as possible, slightly below bottom lip, but I think
we do have a relatively similar mustache shape. So yes, it's almost time for MagicCon Chicago. Jake, I know you are working on it, and by the time this comes out, we'll have published a guide to the limited events at MagicCon Chicago, something that I'm sure will be very interesting to the listeners of this podcast, who will hopefully be at the show, just like me.
It's like the best way to engage with limited too. Like, I think that everybody kind of gets like the Friday night Magic taste. You go to F&M, you're like, oh, there's a draft, and then like there's always the final boss at F&M that's very good at draft, and you kind of like feel like there's like pressure. Am I picking fast enough? Am I picking the right things? Magic cons, you just get to kind of roam free. There's every different type of event from, like whole box sealed to Emperor.
What is Emperor, Jake? You mentioned it before we started, and I said, oh yeah, Emperor. I don't know what Emperor is.
Okay. Emperor is 3-headed giant. Only the person in the middle is the Emperor, and you can only attack to a person, or you can only attack somebody that's seated next to you. So if your Emperor dies, the entire team is eliminated, and you can gift creatures to other players on your team. You play collaboratively, but it's truly a cursed format in every way. They are going to, I think they give you an entire box to build your
for like the team. Yeah.
It's full box sealed.
Okay.
There's 2 of them, Friday at 2, Saturday at 6. And I don't understand really. There's going to be so many judge calls.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But if you're truly looking for like something that is super unique and fun, but no one will ever play with you again, and also you have 2 friends,
yeah, sure.
Book it.
Yep, definitely. So,
if you're solo and want to meet two of the most interesting people there.
Yeah, the two other solo people being like LF1 for our other solo Emperor group. LF1, LF1. No, thank you. I'll be in the Forgetful Fish qualifier, Jake. You can't trick me.
I don't even. What is the final boss thing for that? I know that there's a place you could advance, but also thank you for just not having me on the entire episode that will be dedicated to it.
The final boss thing for that? I'm shooting for that trophy. That's all I'm saying.
I'm so excited to be
That's my
walking.
MagicCon Chicago plan.
In 20 years, when somebody's walking through a pawn shop and they're just like, what is this forgetful fish trophy?
Yeah.
He's down on his luck.
Exactly. So, Jake, limited at MagicCon Chicago. Before we get into the nitty gritty of it, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit because I think the average listener of this show is maybe a little more on the casual side of things, maybe commander background or similar. I just know there's a lot of people around here that don't participate in limited that much. First, I want to ask you, I know you're a big limited head. What is the big appeal of limited to you? What is it for you that really makes limited click as a way of playing Magic the Gathering?
I think that there's limited and commander have so much in common. And I think it's one of those things where it's like the thing that especially like big commander creators I know, the way that they let off steam is like a vintage cube draft or like just like jamming some, like it's such a good release because the way I interact with commander is like it's strictly for fun for me. I play decks that are narrative driven. I want everybody to do their thing. Winning is the least important part of a commander game for me personally. You know, like peace, love, unity, respect, however you want to engage with the game, go for it, et cetera, et cetera. But like my thing is that it's my like fun outlet of Magic. But I'm a deeply competitive person. And so for me, it scratches a lot of the same itches, right? It is generally like a singleton format. Every game presents very different puzzles to solve. The replay is very different than like constructed. Every time I qualify for like a big constructed event, it's just a punishment for doing well in limited.
Yeah, you're like, cool. I top aided this sealed. I won this sealed RC. Man, I don't even remember. I about said PPTQ. What year is it? RCQ. What do I do? Oh, I get to play modern. Awesome.
Yeah, I get to go play Pioneer in Dallas in the middle of summer. Like, what are we doing? So it's like, I want a way to engage with like some kind of competitive Magic that isn't just like, okay, I go and spend $400 on a deck that does the same repetitive things over and over again against my opponents that are trying to do the same repetitive things. And hopefully like my coin flips went better than theirs. Hopefully I made the good metagame call. It's like, no, every draft I sit down, I have total agency over what I'm doing. And it's a little puzzle to solve in the same way that I look at like commander games is like, hey, there's a lot of different things happening here. What works, what doesn't. And like, I get to do that without having to invest a ton of money into constructed decks. And when you draft IRL, you just get to take those cards home. You know, if you draft on Arena, those go into your collection. You're building something as opposed to like, oh, I'm playing for like rank or something. Oh, that's so miserable.
I think there's a very interesting point in what you said earlier before I started opining about Forgetful Fish for no reason, which is that I think draft can be intimidating to a lot of people because of that. Maybe because of that FNM environment. I know when I was kind of starting out playing Magic, for whatever reason, I was more comfortable playing constructed than I was going and playing draft because I think, you know, maybe is familiar. I was also obviously more comfortable playing commander than I was going to draft, but it was just like, man, I get to pay $15 to get my ass beat. What's the fun in that?
Yeah, you're hoping you open like a surveil land or something exactly. Just to like break even.
Yeah, literally like that time it was like, all right, cons draft. Hope I can open a Polluty Duty and just stick that in the binder.
My buddy brought me to my first pre-release just because he wanted my fetches. He's like, maybe you'll get some fetches.
All right, this is called Onslaught. You open the packs.
That's I think that digital Magic has given us such an interesting way to like start connecting with draft in a lower stakes environment. It takes a lot of, but I think bot draft is actually a great way for people to kind of dip their toes in the water where you don't have the pressure of a clock or like the guy at your local store that you hate kind of breathing down your neck. Like, okay, when's the next pick?
And then they grab it and they're like, you left this in the back?
Exactly. It's
the
just
funniest joke that anyone's ever told.
I didn't need to be named and shamed over my love of like gruel monsters, buddy. I'm drafting 4 Power Matters and I'm taking it to the top of the hill where I'm going to be King Turd of Crap Mountain.
I guess like with bot draft too, it's kind of a nice in between because you have like a low pressure draft environment. You can kind of do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. But then unlike a lot of like draft sims online or whatever, you still get to play games. You get to play your deck against other people. Granted, they very well may be people breaking bot draft and you'll have an even worse experience that you would have had if you were, doing a real draft on Arena. But it's kind of the best of both worlds between like a draft sim online, but then you still get to see how your deck actually works, figure out how good a card that you thought is it actually good. You get to figure that stuff out in a more safe environment.
Yeah, and like on top of that, it's the cheapest way to draft. You can literally just sink 5,000 gold, which if you're playing your dailies, you get that in, a week usually. You get to do a free draft a week. And, I don't like spending it on packs or cosmetics unless we're talking about Dwayne the Rock or, like the plaid sleeves. Like I just like, hey, do that. Do like the Phantom Sealed events that they do every once in a while. Start dipping your toes in there. And then these events are kind of designed to have lower pressure, limited things that are going on. And also I like to think that when it's more of like a safe space when you're at a MagicCon, ironically, because it's not just like everybody at the store that like maybe or don't know. Like, hey, you're just out there with strangers mixing it up, and there's like a freedom in that.
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
And like, I think that draft is really hard to sell people on. Sealed, I think everyone knows that pre-releases are fun, right? It's low rules enforcement. Everybody's figuring it out. You get a pack around or whatever, but like you also get new cards that you walk home with and you're like, yes. And so it's just like trying to remember that limited can be more of like a pre-release environment as opposed to like a Pro Tour draft goes a long way in just like reduce the anxiety. It's low stakes. It's like, sure, with a play booster, it's probably like $100 to draft. But no, like you get to walk away with some cool cards. And hey, if you want to take a $20 rare, go for it. Like that is absolutely right. And like,
then your draft is paid for, even though you're never selling that sucker. Your draft is paid for.
Right. You free rolled it theoretically. And at the end of the day, it's like, I look at it as just like, what would I be spending money on otherwise? Like, what can I do for 3 or 4 hours for $5 an hour? I don't know. There's not a lot anymore.
I'm always like, man, $15-$20 or whatever. Back in the day, I was kind of like, well, it's a lot of money. And these days I'm like, is that 2 beers?
Well, yeah, 1 extra hazy IPA, but yeah, it's chill. I'm like a huge proponent of it just because it gives you an opportunity to see a different side of Magic too. I think that I am a better Commander player because I understand combat intensely through limited play, because limited is just all combat, right?
Yeah, if you can learn a lot, if you get nail down limited, you'll be so much better at combat because that's all it is.
Truly, like when my wife learned how to play Magic as a Christmas present for me, the sweetest thing that anybody will ever do or has ever done in the history of the world, I think combat was like the one thing that she really struggled with. It's threat assessment. It's going like, before I even know what they have in their hand, like, is it just a good time to attack or not? I feel like combat is a really underrated skill in Magic, and that limited is such a great battleground, and the is like relatively low stakes, you know, but you take that to your next game and you stop leaving a little damage on the board. You start, you know, kind of seeing where you get attacks better. I don't know. I think it's just from that, like a skills standpoint, worth checking out.
Oh, definitely. So you've sold someone on Phantom Sealed. You've sold someone on Take a Little Bot Draft. Is there anything is there any quick advice that you could give someone that would make that bot draft go a little bit better for them? I guess format agnostic is tough, but
no. That's a great question. I think that what people are really reticent to do is use the tools that are available to them. I don't know, like I wasn't like a Nintendo Power kid when I was growing up. Like if you bought the magazine and like had all of the maps to Zelda, then you deserved, you know, to have your game erased. But so sorry, Arthur. But in the same breath, I think that with Magic, everybody has kind of access to the same information, whether it's 17lands.com, which has, you know, kind of like reasonable card ratings to, there are so many different outlets out there that will give you decent card ratings that are based on people playing these cards. And so I just recommend, like, it's okay to have like a little cheat sheet because there's so much depth beyond those basic numbers that you get from these websites. They're just rating things kind of in the dark. They don't know what you're doing or what cards you already have. But I think that the biggest mistake I see people make is that they overrate rarity. They go like, oh, this is the rare. Preposterous Proportions is like an example from a recent Mana Club where it's a 10-10 or give all your creatures 10-10 and Vigilance until end of turn. And it's like 5 and 2 green to cast. And then on face, it looks like, okay, well, if I cast this, I win the game. And it's one of kind of the worst rares in green in Foundations. In Foundations broadly, also in green. And it seems like the kind of card that a lot of newer people would pick. And so draft is a lot about taking the expectations that you have as maybe a collector or a player where you have more agency over your deck and really kind of dropping that down and going, what do I have in this pack that does something right away, that gives my opponent a question they have to answer, and it can do so at a reasonable point in the game.
Mm-hmm. And then remember, just draft Boros 1 and 2 drops, and you'll be set, and you'll be good. And Marshall Sutcliffe will come to your house.
Marshall has already put you on a list. I'm so sorry, Cal. Because that is actually very actionable advice. Like early in any format, just play Boros, play the fast things, play a lot of combat tricks. People don't see them coming. Like that. That's like great day one. Day one, go with the fastest thing out there.
That was
combat tricks are always better.
The stupidest thing in the world. Just a bad combat trick story. Stupidest thing in the world. Back in the day, when I was in college, I would go down to the local F&M and we would draft. And at the time, man, it was Rivals of Ixalan. And I won a lot more games of that format than I should have, and that is because I was the only guy who, for whatever reason, was interested in casting the card Skullduggery. It's like, I gotcha.
Like
in the world of vanilla 3/3 being one of the better commons in the format, Skullduggery really did some work for me.
It's to see that late, you're just like, oh well, I guess no one likes packs.
I guess I'm vampires again.
I feel like I was taking like Sailor of Means and forcing like weird 3 or 4 color decks.
Yeah, just like, okay, we're going to be here for 2 hours anyway, so Sailors of Means is the only fixing I need in my deck. Let me tell you.
I mean, I guess that's like another point that I would make for people is that when you're starting off, just do the simple thing well, as opposed to trying to do the big thing poorly. Because I think there's the temptation to like go as hard as possible. And that is fun. And if you are drafting for fun, that is within your rights. If you want to get better at limited, then eventually down the line, you will be able to subsidize that fun with your ability at limited.
Yes. You will gain a shocking amount of points by removing that splash that you don't actually have an off-color land for. No, the two islands aren't going to cut it, buddy.
The 2-drop splash, or I'm like, what in what world? It punishes our most impulsive sides, and I am like I'm the most impulsive person. So limited is a terrible place for me. I think that it's therapeutic in that way.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense.
I'm just doing my draft therapy. Don't worry about it. It's 15 an hour. It's a hell of a deal.
Well, Jake, now that we have prepared every listener to play the limited format, they're ready to go to F&M. They're ready to play. Maybe they've done a draft. Maybe they've never drafted before. We're going to MagicCon Chicago. What are we thinking? What should they be doing?
Okay, so
what do we got? What's limited look like at Chicago?
There is a bevy of events. You can play pretty much any kind of limited that you want there. The way that most events work is that they have on-demand events that are just firing constantly. Once they got 8, that draft goes ahead and goes. And then they have a bunch of scheduled events. These you can prepay for in advance. I don't know how many of them are sold out at this point, but generally you want to register ahead of time for these, or check in when you get there, ask them to be put on the waiting list, whatever. They're really good about that because people drop all the time. They're doing better in an event that they signed up for before this, didn't end up dropping. Yeah. Go and see what events are available. You will be able to play. Generally, each win in a round is going to be prize wall tickets. Prize wall tickets can get you all kinds of cool things. They can get you packs. They can get you deck boxes. They can get you those novelty oversized cards that people talk about.
I'll have one in my background one day. Dang it.
Okay, so once you're in the hall and you're like, I'm going to commit to some events. Of the ticketed events, I think that there are really 2 big things that are happening. They have competitive events, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then they have very beginner level events that are designed for you. Like if you're looking for an event because you kind of secretly want to play Commander, but maybe you're done playing Commander for the weekend, or you need a break, or my deck's not really doing it. They have what's called full box sealed, or they do a multi-pack sealed that is Commander. So let's see, the first one, BDM, Brian David Marshall, is doing full box Commander of Aetherdrift. It's $180. So you are buying the box. You get to take the box home with you. If you were going to get a box of Aetherdrift, might as well play with it, earn some tickets along the way. That's Friday at 3:00. Iffy Wadiway and BDG have a D&D version on Sunday that I would recommend a little more highly. It is at 11 a.m., which is rough for a Sunday morning, but it's only $100 and it's fewer packs, but you also may want fewer packs. I don't know if Aetherdrift's any good yet.
Oh, it's still Aetherdrift, but D&D themed somehow.
So the D&D one is it's 2 packs of Commander Masters, which I think was unfairly maligned. You get 4 Baldur's Gate packs, 3 AFR packs, and 3 Foundation packs.
So, okay. Fascinating. Cool.
Smaller pool, but more broadly D&D themed with some, And
then I guess both the Baldur's Gate packs and Commander Masters packs are larger than normal.
Yeah, you're getting the double rares in the Commander Masters packs, and that's only $100. That's good value if you're.
And then you can have fun.
Yeah, if you're one of my value homies, that, bless up, that is for you, because a good way to close out the weekend, and you're playing kind of Commander rules. There's points or tickets per pod you finish, but you just get to show up, you get to build something. It's a ton of time too. Almost every one of the sealed events that you're going to participate in this weekend gives you 50 minutes, frankly, a staggering amount of time to build pre-release levels. So you're not going to feel pressured at any point. Yeah, and it's like very collaborative too. Like the one thing that I know is that people are more excited about you building a good fun deck as opposed to being like, and my secrets are mine.
And if you do run to any of those people, just tell them they're an ass.
Come tell me.
It's like my brother in Christ. This is a 12 p.m. on Sunday side event that fired on demand. What are we doing here?
Just raise your hand and ask for Iffy. Iffy doesn't take that shit.
Iffy, can you toss this guy? He's being mean.
I think that sealed is like obviously low barrier of entry. They do give you a lot of cards. Like if you're looking for some advice with like these big pack events where they're giving you like half box, full box, just break it down, find your rares, separate your rares by color, and then separate your colors. And generally you're going to find out what's going to work just by the sheer volume of playables that you have. Like every time I go to a pre-release and then somebody's like, I'm playing green, I have 8 green cards. I'm like, you have to play all of them and they all have to be good. So it's just like a quick heuristic of like, what do I have the most cards of? Like in a color, I should probably be that color, because the way that you win in like draft and sealed is not by having the best 3 cards, but by having the best final 10 cards. You draw more of your deck than just your bombs. So if your 17th through 23rd card are really good, you're going to win more games.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. As long as you can play the good cards, you'll win. You're telling me this? I'm just learning this right now.
The nice thing is, with a full box, you're probably going to get some fixing. You might be able to splash here. I'm just throwing it out there. I just want to posit splashing may be possible. There is like my most confusing, most fun award goes to Emperor. They're doing that Friday at 2, Saturday at 6. It's full box sealed. It's team, but team events are tough. Like the one thing I know about cons, I'm taking Saturday off. I have nothing on my calendar because it's just like everybody's kind of doing their own thing. If you have friends there, and if you're just like, hey, I showed up with a buddy maybe, or like I'm hoping to run into some people, it's tough to get into those. So, once like my probably best value solo event is and honestly, if you're new to sealed deck, new to limited entirely, Mystery Box 2, Mystery Booster 2, you take all of your packs, add lands, shuffle it up. That's the event.
That's the event? That's crazy.
It's $50. You get 6 packs. It's $100 value. Because like those booster packs, like some of them have like $200-$300 cards in them at this point. Like I think ours is still ripping. So, and you get 1,000 tickets per win. So like literally, if you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, hey, you're just gonna shuffle your packs together, sit down across from someone.
Yeah, just make sure you open enough. Make sure you do a little counting and put in enough basic lands, and you're off to the races.
There it is. I wish it was omniscience. I wish it was just like, and we cast things, but that I guess we have like
insane.
We're engaging with Magic on some level. We are going to use the rules set. Why not? And like in general, there's a lot of these mystery events that are like legitimately cool. I think that somehow kind of the broader internet missed these, like the product, just because it was like on the Secret Lair website, and then it was like kind of in Vegas, but not really. But like, there's a ton of really cool stuff in there. It was my favorite design set of the year, between like the Future Sight frames, white border cards, a ton of like really powerful like CDH staples. So, there's money in it. Like there's cool stuff happening in these boxes. And it's like a legitimately well curated draft environment, considering there's like over 1,500 cards in it, I want to say.
Yeah. I was always super impressed with the first one. I really want to try out the second one.
It's 10 out of 10 experience. I think if you have a chance to jump in one of those, the product is still super limited. It's one of the smallest print runs. I think it's like alpha. So like it's...
Well, yeah, because it was like a really weird situation where like the events segment of Wizards was looking for something to do.
Totally.
And they said, cool, we'll use our budget to make this product, which is, and the deal was that it had to be exclusive to events. Okay. And they put it in like one weird secret layer, big bundle thing, but who knows?
Yeah, it's just like not reaching the market that well. There's just like people aren't really cracking a ton of it. I don't know. I'm also like a huge fan of just whiteboarder cards in general. Just being old.
It is weird because like some creators got it in Classic, and then we've had Vegas, and that was basically the only time when it's been available so far. Was you could buy some boxes at Vegas, and there was the secret layer, which was pretty limited, and now I guess Chicago will be the second big drop.
Yeah, that's it. That's like really the test of it. And I don't know. I think it's like if you're looking for something weird where like nothing's going to come together all that well, like you will do cool explosive things. It kind of reminds me of Commander gameplay in that way, where like it'll feel like a little battle cruisery at times, but also like there's just like Demonic Consultation's a card that's in there. Like there's weird things that can occur within the environment that I think makes for like super interesting gameplay compared to like Foundations, which is a set that I have been drafting over and over again, but offers like a very streamlined, like linear idea of what draft can be.
Certainly. Yeah, it's like go play modern. Go play modern. No, go play Mystery Booster 2 if you, especially that event. if you are fine with, well, I guess we're theoretically talking about more casual Commander players here, you know. So if you're fine with your opponent, your opponent just losing the game because you didn't find the island you needed, then you'll be fine and it'll be all good.
If you've ever wanted to cast a balance, you can do it. It'll happen there.
That scares me. That scares me. Personally, that scares me.
One of the other like really good sealed casual events that I wanted to throw out there, they have what they're calling Duel Karlach versus Asterion. Did I say those right?
I think so. Karlach, yeah.
Not a D&D guy. Baldur's Gate 3 missed me, but... So it's 3 AFR boosters, 3 Baldur's Gate boosters. Then you get one of those 2 secret layers, one of the named secret layer, and then a random bonus layer. We do not know what this layer is. I would recommend checking that out. It's 1,200 tickets per win too, which is like slightly better than a lot of them. So yeah.
Cool. And what if, moving out of the sealed realm, unless there's anything else you have to recommend for that.
There's kind of like a weird, like a hybrid of a sealed draft event that they do a lot called Draft Your Draft, which is that you are basically doing a Rochester draft where they place a bunch of packs on the table and then you draft the packs that you want to build your sealed pool out of. So if you've never Rochester draft before, the person in seat 1 gets the first pick. The person in seat 8 gets the 8th and 9th pick. It snakes around. And
it's all 100% public information. Yep.
Yeah, so that's like a weird kind of like hybrid thing. But yeah,
it's a cool concept.
Yeah.
Nice. What are the real draft heads going to be doing at MagicCon Chicago?
It's like draft is just not a thing that they really want to push as like ticketed event kind of thing, because only 8 people could do it. It's like, sealed's great. Hey, we just get like a flight of people. We're going to have them descend on these tables.
Yeah.
And then we yell.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's no logistics beyond getting them the packs and turning on a 50-minute timer and then saying, all right, open the companion app, please. Yeah, there's no, all right, you get 3 packs. You get 3 packs. All right, everyone, you're passing to the left. Guys, everyone say it with me. Left, right, left.
Left, right, left.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think the best way at these events to engage with draft is make the top 8 of an event, or you can do these little like turbo events or turbo drafts at the end of the night where you just jump in. They're higher stakes. So, all right, maybe not like this for the casual, but it's one game. You're playing a game or you play a match. you get some tickets, you walk away. Draft is such like a weird thing because the set's going to be relatively new, so there's not a ton of ways to practice, at that point. I would say if you're looking to draft, I would try and earmark one draft and try and like do it with a friend or somebody, because these aren't super like competitive. It's not like REL. You can just have fun and kind of like talk to them. Hey, what should I do with this? What should I do with that? It's chill. It's very chill.
Yep. Cool. Sounds nice, at least.
Yeah. I guess the only event that I would consider like a skip is probably Gavin's unknown event. And no shade on Gavin. I think it's like a legitimately cool and fun event. I just think that, when this started in Philadelphia, it was a $60 event. And then last year in Vegas, it jumped to a $90 event. This year, it's a $100 event. And it's such a like time dominator because everybody's just kind of like showing up. It's the chillest of the events. So it just takes a long time. It takes a long time to get through your game. A lot of times, like, I'll have the homies just being like, I don't know, I was trying to flag anybody so that I could just get through with it by the end. And like, if I was going to do any of them, there's a bunch of flights. They usually sell out because there used to be a ton of value in the cards. And then people figured out that A, they were worth money, so they started selling them, and that B, they were super easy to counterfeit. So, because they're just stickers on a card.
Yep.
So I don't think that there's like the value in there, but there's a two-headed giant one that's on Sunday, I want to say.
Sounds cute, at least.
What's that?
Sounds cute, at least.
It's cute. It's like something to do with a homie, but it's $200. So it's like, I don't know. I have a lot of things that I could do with a friend for $200, but you do get like the experience of playing in a Gavin event. And I believe that they all benefit the Trevor Project. If they don't, they should, but I believe they all do. So,
I believe they all do. And they have in the past. I would assume they have continued to do so.
Yeah. So that's my only like, hey, if you're going to do one, just understand it is no longer as lucrative as it once was financially. And it's going to eat up a big part of your con.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I did one of them at Gen Con, and it was my first one, and it was a lot of fun. And then I said, cool, I've done a Gavin event. And I probably don't need to do one again. But it was fun.
Whose card did you get? Did you get somebody you knew's card?
I did. I got Emma's card, which was a lot of fun because it was also like the use any card. You can put any creature you have into the command zone, but there's no color identity. So I was just like, yeah, I'll just put Emma in the command zone. And I had like a sacrifice deck, so that when I didn't want all of my things to be Thraben Inspectors, I got to just sacrifice my OG. It just worked. I spent so much time making 1-mana 1/2s and clues and dying. I'm just like, I have 5 Thraben Inspectors and I've spent 10 mana to draw 5 cards. And my opponents were like, tap my 8 lands, cast the most you've seen in your life. And I'm like, oh yeah, I lose to that. So that was my experience, but I had a lot of fun along the way. Just like, they're like, yeah, this is my Ook and Bolus hybrid card. I'm just like, okay, you got it, bud.
I've got Emma's favorite. It was recently reprinted at Common.
Yeah, well, I can check this out. I can block that with my 1/2. What are you going to do about that? They're like, it is trample. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll pick these up.
As well it should.
I'll pick these up. So, Jake, we're running low on time, as one does. I think the final question I have to ask is there anything else that someone should know? Okay, we've given them the very basal ropes. You've thrown them some events that you think would be interesting.
If you're looking for something that's like one jump up from this, I don't recommend the PTQ. It's going to be very competitive and spiky. It's also expensive.
Yes.
like people don't mess around at the PTQ. It's not a lot of fun. I think the limited cup is super interesting. You also get a trophy, and like the winner takes home a ton of boxes of like the most recent set. And I think it's like, hey, it will give you the kind of GP feel of playing for some stakes and getting a chance to day 2 an event without it feeling like it's totally backbreaking. It's, I think, $90 compared to $125 for the PTQ, but like this will be the most competitive limited tournament that's not a PTQ. So if you don't want to go to the PT, which I'll be honest, it's not that great of an experience.
Yeah, it's whatever. Yep.
So if you're just looking for like, hey, maybe I get a really good sealed pool and I spike this, then, you know, you get a day 2 draft. Maybe you walk away with a trophy. No matter what, you walk away with a ton of packs. Check out the limited cup. I think it'll be cool. And then Sunday, like my pitch is, if you're tired of Commander by Sunday, they have the Sunday Sealed and Stacked, which is just a ton of packs. It's $125. And if you get 3 wins, I think you walk home with like 2 play booster boxes. Maybe it's 5 wins, whatever. It's like a really quick tournament with a chance to win a ton of prizes. So
cool. Very, very cool. Excellent. Jake, thank you so much for telling us all about Limited for Commander players and also Limited at MagicCon Chicago. Now I can go and I can play in a sealed event. I'm interested in that Iffy and BDG event. I have always wanted to do the BDM events, and I'm always like, cool, I like BDM. I like the idea of Boxing League, and every time I see the sticker price on a Boxing League, I'm like, you know what? I'll continue.
Is BDM bartending it? That's where
I know. That's where it comes in.
I mean, not to toot my own horn, but
oh no, he got it back. It's back. The boxing leagues are so ideal in my mind, and every time I see the sticker price, I'm like, you know what? I could do it the 2 hours. The same thing I do every MagicCon instead of playing Magic. Wander around and go, hey, I know that person. I'll go bother them. That Commander game doesn't look very important.
I've got some thoughts on it.
I could go accost Michael Caffrey. I could fit that into my day. So Jake,
the best person to accost.
Exactly. I've got one more question for you, but that'll be for the people in the Horn section. The Horn section, our wonderful patrons over on Patreon. In 2025, I'm asking everyone the same question, which is, I would love to hear about any hobby you have that is outside of Magic the Gathering. But we'll talk about that in a second. Jake Browne, thank you so much for joining me here on the Herald's Horn.
Thanks, Cal.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you have feedback, would like to sponsor us, or would like to submit something to the Letters to the Editor segment, email me at editorial@heraldshorn.com. The show is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Cal Jones. The rest of the team is, of course, our co-hosts, Emma Partlow, Dan, better known as Moderately Anonymous MTG, and Lexi, better known as Black Girl Mage. We're having so much fun making this show. I hope you're enjoying listening to it. We'll see you next week.